This episode is going to be all about how you can move a conversation forward in the direction you want it to go, coming up. Welcome to the Communicate Clearly podcast, where we believe connection is key, confusion is the enemy, and practicing your communication skills is the best way to grow your confidence and influence. I'm your host, Jonathon Vogel. I gotta love this intro music. It's so awesome and upbeatful. Upbeatful, that's a word. Okay. Anyway, so let's get right into it, guys. If you haven't already, make sure to go subscribe to my YouTube channel, ComTV. Just type it in the YouTube search bar, one word, ComTV, and you can subscribe, turn on the notification bell if you're into watching those videos. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably someone who doesn't watch a lot of YouTube videos, and that's why I do this podcast for you. Now, let's get right into it. How do you direct a conversation? Well, we've all been in a conversation that's, okay, we're talking about something, somebody comes up to you, they start talking about their grandfather passed away, blah, 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 or how they started this company, and they have this great blah, 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 blah. Means nothing to you, and it drives you insane. You're so bored of the conversation, and you just want to leave and have a conversation with a civilized human being who sounds interesting, who's attractive and confident, and blah, 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 blah. But you're stuck in this conversation that's driving you crazy. How do you direct it and move it in a way that's going to make you either end the conversation or talk about things you want to talk about? Well, there's a simple way you can do this. And it's something that I've seen other professional conversationalists do. It's something that I've used from time to time, and it really helps the conversation along so that you're talking about things you want to move, you want to talk about, and you're moving the conversation in the direction it needs to go. So this is how you do it. So let's say you're talking to somebody, hey, my name's Jonathon, hey, blah, 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 and you get past the introduction, you're talking about whatever, how was your day, weather looks great, what do you like to do for a living, blah, 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 you get onto those questions, right? But then they start talking about something that's like, okay, this is so boring, they've been going for 3 minutes straight on how blah, 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 and it's like, okay, great, you're using your reflective listening skills, you're making yourself look like an interested consumer of their content, if you will, right? But you're now tired and bored of the conversation, you want to move on. A great way to do this is, well, you need to practice your reflective listening to get to this. So you need to be reflectively listening back to what they're saying so that they feel like they're heard and validated. Because if you don't have that type of connection yet, it's going to be a lot harder to move the conversation in the direction you want it to go. So make sure you're reflectively listening first. That's the first thing, okay? And then the second thing you need to do is, after you've been reflectively listening back so that they feel engaged, you need to kind of create a summary when you're reflectively listening that moves the conversation along and sums up their 3-minute rant in a period of like 2 sentences. So it's like, I love chocolate, and you get into all the ingredients of chocolate. And my dad works at this chocolate. He's actually a chocolatier. My grandfather had this business, and they did how you make chocolate is essentially you're creating this. You have this pot, and you put the chocolate in, and you got to turn the oven on. And and they start talking about chocolate for 3 minutes. It's like, you as the listener can be like, so what you're saying is chocolate is a complicated beast. It's something that you can put together as a lot of complicated things, right? Yeah, that's awesome. You totally understood what I'm saying. I feel heard and validated. You get what I'm saying? So that simple sentence that you used can help the person make them feel like they understood you, and therefore make the conversation shorter for you and more engaging, because what that does is it brings closure to a can of worms that they just opened up. You put the lid back on, and it helps them understand that you heard what they're saying, you get the gist of it, and it's time to move on. And at that point, the conversation comes. If you think about a sound wave, you know how it's going up and down and up and down and up and down. After that conversation, you've hit the peak where blah, 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 they've been talking, and then that reflective listening phrase that you use, that one sentence, brings it down to the bottom. So now you can take the conversation anywhere you want to go. That's the cool thing about the reflective listening phrase. It's so effective Try it sometime. Try this phrase. It's really, really simple to use, and it's different. There's no formula like in the last episode I talked about how to assert yourself, right? In that 3-step formula. This episode is more of just come in with the idea. If you get into a conversation that you don't like the content, it's not interesting for you, you want to move it in the direction you need it to go, you want it to go, use the concept of reflectively listening so that the person you're talking to feels engaged and respected, but then use that one-liner sentence to kind of conclude, summarize what they've been saying, and make the conversation shorter so you can move it on in the direction you want it to go. So that's the first part. That's the first stage, is making sure you've established the connection, right? Done the introduction of the conversation, shook in their hand, making sure you make that first contact, reflectively listen to what they're saying, get them on a roll, and then summarize what they're saying if it's not interesting or you want to take the conversation in a different direction so you can move on to the next phase of your conversation, right? This is the idea. So the second phase is if that still doesn't quite work, or it's worked, but now you're like, what do I do from here? You're in this kind of transition period. There's a great formula that you can use, a quick cheat sheet kind of thing. I will link it in the podcast episode, but it's by Real Men Real Style, Antonio Centeno, that he wrote a blog post many years ago talking about how you can keep a conversation going. It's a set of questions memorized in the format of an acronym, and the acronym is called ORCA. And essentially what ORCA is, it's a type of way that you can help you remember certain questions to help you carry on a conversation. So we've just talked about the first phase of making a conversation finish, so you can come down that sound wave to the bottom so you can take it to the next phase of the conversation. But that next phase is where you need to memorize that type of acronym. The acronym goes something like this: origins, recreation, career, and aspirations. And I'm getting this right from the Real Men Real Style post. You can get it at realmenrealstyle.com/3 social tips. He uses this, and he found an image off of communicationfornerds.com. It's essentially origins, so asking the questions: where are you from? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Not all at once in quick succession like that, but those are some questions you can pull from. Origins. Now the next part of ORCA is R, so recreation. What do you like to do in your spare time? Do you have any hobbies? What's something you do almost every weekend? Another great one is career, so ORC. Where do you work? How long have you been with the company? What's your role? And then A, aspirations. What's on your bucket list? What's your passion in life? If you could travel anywhere tomorrow, where would you go? Those are some great questions you can ask in a conversation to keep it moving forward. It's so good, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in. This is the end of this podcast. Let me know what you guys think. It's so much fun to do this. Again, I want you to go check out my YouTube channel, ComTV, so you can stay up to date in all the newest, freshest content. But if you prefer the podcast, that's okay too. All right. See, most people struggle to communicate clearly, so I create content to help you become confident and competent in your communication skills. All right, that's it, guys. I will see you next week. Take care. You're awesome.